Bts News Today that Seoul's dawn has always carried a different kind of silence. The air feels thinner, the glow from the streetlights reflects softly on the damp pavement, and the city's noise seems swallowed by something unseen. But that night, at exactly 4:13 Korea Standard Time, the silence shattered in an instant when a figure, hoodie pulled low, mask covering half his face, and a large black suitcase rolling behind him, rushed across the back courtyard of a building every army knows too well, the HWB Practice Complex. That figure was none other than Park Jimin. A janitor leaving through the side door reported hearing the sound first. Drag, drag, drag. Like suitcase wheels scraping against rough concrete. When he turned around, he froze. There stood Jimin, breathing heavily, one hand gripping the suitcase handle, the other clutching a phone that kept ringing, though he refused to answer it. And perhaps the most shocking detail of all, Jimin's eyes looked swollen as if he had been crying. The news spread through army forums in under 10 minutes. Someone snapped a blurry, dimly lit photo from afar, just enough to show Jimin's silhouette running, as if escaping something or being chased by time itself. The moment the picture hit the timeline, chaos erupted. Questions flooded the fandom. Why is Jimin running? What's in the suitcase? Why is he alone with no staff? What happened at HWB tonight? Nobody knew. No one could give answers because what unfolded next became a chapter that Army wasn't ready for, one filled with fear, urgency, and a truth that refused to stay buried. Hours earlier, at 11:58 p.m., a single studio light on HYB's third floor was still glowing. Jungkook, who usually left right after practice, sat hunched on a small gray sofa, his head lowered, shoulders tight as if carrying a burden too heavy to name. His hand reached out, gripping Jimin's arm, trying to keep him from leaving. "Hyung, don't go alone. Let's talk about this. Please." But Jimin only shook his head weakly, eyes red and damp, voice cracking like breaking glass. "I have to leave. If I stay, everything will get worse." Jungkook stood in front of him, blocking the door. "Then I'm going with you. Whatever this is, we face it together." Jimin's lips curled into a trembling smile. A smile too forced to hide the pain behind it. "No, Jungkook, you can't come. You have an important schedule tomorrow. This is my problem." "Our problem," Jungkook insisted. Jimin closed his eyes, exhaling as if releasing a secret he had hidden far too long. "You don't understand. If you come, you'll get dragged into it. I won't risk that." Before Jungkook could protest, Jimin's phone buzzed again. One look at the caller's name drained the color from his face. "I have to go," he repeated. Jungkook reached out to stop him, but Jimin gently removed his hand and disappeared down the dark hallway. Jungkook stood frozen, fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. No staff approached. No one dared to speak. When Jimin exited the back door with his large suitcase, he looked back at the HYB building once, his stare filled with wounds he couldn't explain. It was a gaze of someone walking away from something precious, or someone. What he didn't know was that someone else stood hidden behind a delivery truck, cap pulled low, eyes burning with worry. Jungkook, he had followed Jimin from afar. No matter what Jimin had said earlier, Jungkook would never let him run through Seoul alone at 4 in the morning, dragging a suitcase that seemed to carry the weight of the world. Jimin walked quickly, almost desperately. The city lights cast long shadows on his path. He hailed a taxi, but the moment the car stopped and he saw the driver's face, he stepped back in alarm. Without saying a word, he turned and walked away. The suitcase rattled violently behind him, bouncing off uneven pavement. His phone vibrated again. He stared at the screen for a long moment before turning the device off completely. From a distance, Jungkook saw it all, the fear, the hesitation, the loneliness, and when Jimin crossed the wide road that led to a quiet riverside park near the Han River, Jungkook quickened his pace, though still keeping enough distance to avoid spooking him. But then Jimin stopped, right in the middle of the bridge. He set down the suitcase, bowed his head, and his shoulders began to tremble. He was crying. Under the pale yellow glow of the bridge lamps, the tears fell, raw, silent, unstoppable. It was the first time in years Army would ever glimpse Jimin like this. Not on stage, not during a live stream, not behind a camera, but as a man stripped of every facade, fighting a storm he could no longer contain. Jungkook couldn't hold back anymore. He ran toward him, wrapped his arms around Jimin from behind, and pulled him close without saying a word. Jimin stiffened in surprise, but only for a moment. Then he collapsed into the embrace, burying his face in the crook of Jungkook's neck. "Hyung, I'm here. You're not alone," Jungkook whispered. Jimin broke completely, sobs echoing softly against the quiet river night, and no cameras. No staff. No noise. Just two souls, one breaking, one trying to hold the pieces together. But the night wasn't done with them. Somewhere far behind them, a shutter clicked. Someone had taken a photo. A silhouette of two familiar figures locked in an emotional embrace. The image spread online as soon as it was uploaded. Why is Jimin carrying a suitcase? Why did he leave HYB at dawn? Why is Jungkook following him? Is there conflict inside the company? Or is this something more personal? HYB stayed silent. The other members didn't appear. No statements, no denials, and silence in the world of BTS is often the loudest signal of all. Only when Jimin calmed down did he explain, barely, and only to Jungkook. The suitcase contained documents, personal items, and something he had discovered hours earlier in the HYB basement. Something that terrified him. Something he wasn't supposed to find. Something that made him feel betrayed, or possibly protected in ways he never knew. Jungkook's jaw tightened. His anger wasn't at Jimin, but at whatever had driven Jimin to this state. He grabbed the suitcase from Jimin. "From now on, I'm carrying this, and I'm coming with you. No discussion." Jimin hesitated, eyes wet, chest rising and falling unevenly. Then he nodded. They walked together toward the riverbank. Behind them, several black vehicles appeared. Not paparazzi, something far more serious. Jimin and Jungkook didn't go home. They didn't return to HYB. Instead, they traveled to a location no army knew existed. A small, hidden place tied to an old secret, one known only by a handful of people in BTS's inner circle. There, they opened the suitcase, and inside was a single brown envelope sealed tightly, with handwriting both of them recognized immediately. It read, "For Jimin. Do not open until you're ready." Jungkook looked at Jimin. Jimin stared at the envelope, fear returning to his eyes. Before either of them could move, footsteps echoed behind them. Someone was approaching. Someone they never expected. Someone who would change the entire story. And the truth that had been buried for years finally began to surface. Seoul's dawn has always carried a different kind of silence. The air feels thinner, the glow from the streetlights reflects softly on the damp pavement, and the city's noise seems swallowed by something unseen. But that night, at exactly 4:13 Korea Standard Time, the silence shattered in an instant when a figure, hoodie pulled low, mask covering half his face, and a large black suitcase rolling behind him, rushed across the back courtyard of a building every army knows too well, the HWB practice complex. That figure was none other than Park Jimin. A janitor leaving through the side door reported hearing the sound first. Drag, drag, drag. Like suitcase wheels scraping against rough concrete. When he turned around, he froze. There stood Jimin, breathing heavily, one hand gripping the suitcase handle, the other clutching a phone that kept ringing, though he refused to answer it. And perhaps the most shocking detail of all, Jimin's eyes looked swollen, as if he had been crying.